Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all of our panelists, all of our organizers, and all of our participants today. We're thrilled to be here at the final closing of what has been an incredible 4 days of inspiration, connection, sharing, and learning. Over the past 4 days, we've heard from women activists, community mobilizers, teachers, legislators, caretakers. We've organized 23 sessions in all with panelists and participants from 96 countries with 883 participants gathering from around the world to share their experiences and their plans. The theme Women in Peace and Security has been addressed in ways that are as broad and diverse as the participants. The situations are very difficult. We've heard from organizations working in war, post-war regions, from leaders addressing systemic violence against women, activists fighting the many legal, cultural, and societal barriers that still exist for women's full inclusion in decision-making. The coronavirus pandemic has also been front and center, with women quickly mobilizing to respond to the broad impact this has had on women in their communities. The one thing that's very clear, however, are the parallels that bring our work, our experiences together, and how absolutely essential the spaces that we've created, that we create on a daily basis, and that build real understanding and connection are a lifeline to us and are a lifeline to this work. What's also very clear is how completely busy we all are. We are women and we deal with technical Zoom conference challenges, full-time professions, caretaking responsibilities, and the generational weight of a very difficult time in history on our shoulders every day. Sometimes with grace, sometimes with less grace than we would like, but every day we address everything we have to. And as an asset-based conference, we focused on the positive, the successes, the stories, models. Yes, the challenges as well, but mostly our motivations and our inspiration for doing what we do. This closing session is an opportunity to take a step back from the debates, the policy discussion, the historical context, and to take a pause from the never-ending strategizing of how in the world we're going to get everything that we have to do done. In asset-based work, we all know that assets are many and that the primary assets are us, not only us individually, but us collectively. And so the next hour and a half are a time to close this conference by hearing from incredible women who are working in their communities to support other women, networks of women and women's organizations, as well as their communities at large, to be healthy, to be safe, and to be stronger. I would love to welcome our panelists that I will introduce in depth in a minute. Xiomara Sibile from Colombia, Rosario Cadima from Bolivia, and Mirka Lalam from Uganda. This session encourages our participants, and our panelists will do this work to encourage and build a more experiential space so that we can all collectively participate in certain exercises and reflections that are rooted in our different panelists' work. Before we get started, as has been tradition, I would like to take a moment for a few recognitions, a couple of recognitions. Coady International Institute, the organizing institution that we all know and love, located in St. Francis Xavier, is located in Mi'kmaq territory, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship with Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik. Eileen, please correct me if I have butchered this name. Peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik a title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. I would also love to take this space to recognize that I'm based in the United States, and hello, my name is Lucia Dupuy. I actually haven't introduced myself to everybody. My name is Lucia Dupuy, and I work with a partner of Coady's, the Haitian Center for Leadership and Excellence, and again, very happy to be with everybody. Quick recognition that human rights, women's rights, civil rights are all sisters in the fight that we're all involved in together for social justice and equality. Yesterday in the United States, a grand jury decided against convicting police officers who killed a young woman named Breonna Taylor in the middle of a night raid gone wrong. It is yet another reminder, a reminder that none of us really need, in fact, that deep-rooted in systemic injustices and discrimination that challenge women, and particularly women of color in the United States and around the world, are prevalent, and that we must continue the fight. So with that, thank you very much for allowing me to take that moment. I would like to pass it over to Xiomara Sibile. Xiomara is a human ecologist, an expert in transpersonal and energy, a psychotherapist, an international consultant in integral wellness. She works in personal development, feminine empowerment, and exponential leadership. In her own words, integral ecology invites us to cultivate inclusion, understanding, introspection, and the generation of new models and spaces of coexistence in harmony and balance. Together with Xiomara, we'll reflect on how we have inexorably become spectators of what appears to be a desolate landscape, while at the same time, a new integral consciousness emerges that allows us to move forward with a stronger inner environment and collective environment. With that, I pass this over to Xiomara.
Satnam, qué delicia y gracias por permitirme estar en este espacio en donde podemos realmente reflexionar acerca de nuestra relación con la biosfera, de nuestra relación como mujeres que no somos solamente espectadoras de este apocalipsis now, de este paisaje desolador, entre comillas, porque claro, tenemos este visor de la angustia de estas imágenes contemporáneas que nos están mostrando un mundo en donde es posible que la desaparición de la vida humana y natural se produzca. Pero está en nosotras, como mujeres, recuperar este espacio co-creativo, porque al final, después de Dios, solo la mujer puede crear la vida. Entonces, mi reflexión hoy es cómo salir de esta cultura que ha estado permeada por lo falologocentrismo, es decir, por esta cultura marcada, dominante, de esta visión de lo masculino que somete a esta madre tierra, a esta Pachamama, a esta naturaleza. Y es que claramente la naturaleza tiene este símbolo de lo femenino, por eso se habla de la Pachamama, de Gaia, de la madre tierra. Entonces es muy importante que nosotras como mujeres nos sensibilicemos a recuperar este don natural de lo femenino y pongamos esta visión uterina, esta visión con el corazón abierto para entender cómo construir una nueva relación frente a esto que está pasando. Claramente, el hombre ha dominado la naturaleza, pero ahora también la tecnología domina al hombre. Entonces estamos frente a nuevos escenarios en donde aparecen seres artificiales, en donde hay sustancias químicas que nos intoxican nuestro cuerpo, en donde hay unas mutaciones impresionantes, en donde se emergen una cantidad de centros urbanos que demandan demasiada energía, pero al final lo que le devuelven a nuestra madre tierra, a esta Pachamama, a esta Gaia, es una cantidad de desechos tóxicos que están traspasando las fronteras. Es increíble que a pesar del efecto invernadero, nosotras muchas veces sentimos que no podemos vivir sin aerosoles, sin aires acondicionados, sin refrigeradores. Estamos frente a la planetización de una sociedad exageradamente de consumo. Y nuestras tierras que están ahí para ser cultivadas, yo vivo en el campo y cada vez me doy cuenta cómo estas tierras se fertilizan, pero no con abonos orgánicos, sino con agroquímicos, con pesticidas, con demasiadas cosas artificiales que cuando yo paso por ahí, digo, ¿cómo me puedo comer una lechuga que huele a tantos químicos, que crece en una tierra tan ácida? ¿Cuál es entonces realmente nuestra corresponsabilidad con la biosfera? Porque la biosfera y nuestro cuerpo somos uno. Y lo que le pase a la biosfera o lo que le pase a nuestro cuerpo tiene una implicación mutua. Entonces, frente a este panorama, de pronto yo escucho esa voz homeostática de este planeta azul que flota en este universo maravilloso y que solamente hasta 1975 nos dimos cuenta que estaba ahí, flotando, como un ser viviente, como un ser sintiente, como un ser que palpita. Y entonces la Pachamama nos dice, esta madre tierra que se acomoda, que se equilibra internamente, nos dice de pronto, las cosas son inexorables y tú no puedes escapar al karma de mi continuum. Estoy furiosa por tus asaltos escalonados. Tú me desnudas, conviertes mi alimento en
Las
harina.
cosas son
Tú
inexorables
humillas,
y tú no
tú
puedes escapar al
esclavas.
karma de mi continuo.
Tú intentas paralizarme, convirtiéndome en un juguete roto, con sus mecanismos esparciéndose en mis entrañas, manteniéndome funcional solamente a través de los trucos heroicos y faustos de tu tecnología. Tú me conduces a las profundidades donde aún ya no soy la misma. Yo me muevo de acuerdo a mi voluntad y a mi naturaleza. Allí abajo no soy de ninguna utilidad para ti y me convierto en lo que era al comienzo. Allí abajo soy como un demonio que destruye en un instante lo que me costó millones y millones de años construir. Empujo los continentes a mi alrededor, aplasto la India contra el Tíbet, hago chocar al África contra la bota italiana, juego Scrabble con el oeste norteamericano, hago girar a Europa como un trompo, elevo los mares hasta las cimas. Yo juego y tú mueres sin sentimentalidad. Vivo o muerto es lo mismo para mí, pero tú me llenas de venenos. Me haces digerir sustancias que no tolero. Yo trato de absorber, de quemar, de limpiar, pero viene más, siempre más. Mis entrañas me duelen. Estoy enferma. Quiero vomitar. Mis intestinos me arden. El forro de mi estómago se agrieta. Es suficiente. Es suficiente. Y este texto de Gaby Susi en el reencantamiento del arte me hace pensar hasta cuándo vamos a seguir llenando a este útero de toxinas, a este útero de desechos orgánicos, a este útero de tantas cosas que lo intoxica. Es imposible que nosotras como mujeres nos quedemos indiferentes frente a este panorama. Por eso es que me encanta que seamos realmente mujeres activas y proactivas frente a las necesidades de esta segunda piel, que es la piel de la naturaleza. Nosotros tenemos que realmente tener una conciencia no solamente de nuestro ser individual, sino de mi relación con el otro, esa alteridad en donde ya no es lo mío. Y claramente estos momentos planetarios nos están pidiendo pasar de ese ser individual a encontrar cómo es mi relación con el otro, pero finalmente también cómo expando mi relación con la naturaleza. Tenemos que ir realmente como diosas que encienden esa antorcha, protegiendo esta segunda piel de nuestro hogar. Es importantísimo, como dice Gregorio Bateson, así como existe la ecología de las malas hierbas, qué maravilla que nosotras podamos también crear una ecología de las buenas ideas. Y realmente este simposio, este congreso, esta unión de fuerzas uterinas, de mujeres que son poderosas y completas y divinas, nos puede llevar realmente a crear nuevas ideas, nuevos espacios, a que reencantemos otra vez este mundo desde esta fuerza femenina. ¿De qué manera vamos a vivir de aquí en adelante? ¿De qué manera realmente vamos a transitar por una espiral ascendente que nos invite a la vida? Y entonces aparece la ecología integral, y les hablo de ecología, pero no solamente la ecología medioambiental. Yo hace muchos años fui pionera de muchas campañas ecológicas en mi país. Sembré muchos árboles en zonas áridas de mi ciudad, pero me di cuenta que la ecología más importante no es la ecología que se hace afuera. Me di cuenta que el lugar más erosionado está dentro de nosotras mismas. que donde tenemos que sembrar realmente semillas de nueva conciencia es en el corazón de cada una de nosotras, porque la mujer tiene este carácter expansivo como sostenedora de su hogar. Y en la medida en que nosotras estemos fértiles, en la medida en que nosotras realmente tengamos una buena tierra y además podamos sembrar buenas semillas en nuestro medio ambiente interior, entonces vamos a lograr que esa biosfera externa sea igual a nuestra ecología interior. Mi pregunta hoy para ustedes, hermosas mujeres, es ¿cómo vamos a vivir a partir de ahora? ¿Necesitamos qué? Necesitamos más inclusión y por eso estos espacios son tan importantes. Necesitamos más comprensión de nuestra verdadera realidad y de nuestra verdadera naturaleza. Necesitamos ir más hacia adentro, tener más espacios introspectivos, porque nuestros sistemas operativos conectados solamente con el externo no están funcionando y realmente nos están llevando hacia un espacio en donde es posible que nuestra naturaleza humana pueda desaparecer. Entonces necesitamos reivindicar formas de construir el conjunto, nuevas modalidades de ser en grupo. Y por eso me encanta la analogía de nuestras indígenas, de nuestras abuelas mayores, que me enseñan cuando subo a la Sierra Nevada y nos dicen que la vida es como un gran tejido, que la vida es una urdimbre en donde cada una de nosotros somos un hilo de ese tejido y tenemos que realmente tejer bonito para sostener nuestra vida. Necesitamos también más ideas generativas. No solamente podemos quedarnos desde la queja, desde la victimización. ¿Cuál es nuestra propuesta realmente para crear nuevas solidaridades, para crear nuevas prácticas de bienestar? Si somos artistas, si somos realmente mujeres creativas, podemos crear nuevas prácticas estéticas. Entonces, crear una nueva visión del mundo se vuelve una tarea indispensable. Que de estos espacios nazcan nuevas formas de ver nuestra naturaleza, que realmente podamos crear nuevas ecologías que tienen que ver con el socius, con la ecología social, con esta reconstrucción necesaria de las relaciones humanas, que podamos establecer una ecología mental, esta psique, nuestra mente, que es el terreno fértil donde sembramos las nuevas ideas. Entonces, que nazca una nueva psique moral. Por supuesto, transitar una ecología medioambiental en donde podamos resignificar las figuras que tenemos de Gaia, de la Madre Tierra. Y finalmente, claramente tenemos que crear una nueva ecología tecnológica que nos hable de nuevas biotecnologías, pero que sean realmente propositivas y que promuevan la vida. Y no por el contrario, que destruyan esta ecología humana. Qué importante, entonces, que veamos estos 4 cuadrantes, si podemos volver a esa figurita de los 4 cuadrantes, en donde entendamos que nuestra naturaleza tiene que transitar por nuestra individualidad, que es nuestro interior. Entonces, darle voces a esta pluralidad, a nuestras áreas rechazadas, a sacar nuestra sombra e iluminarla. Que podamos ir a ese cuadrante individual exterior en donde veamos cómo estamos creando nuevos estilos de vida, nuestras acciones, nuestros comportamientos, cómo estamos autocuidándonos. Si yo no me cuido, si tú no te cuidas, ¿quién nos va a cuidar? Que podamos ir hacia esa introspección de lo colectivo, en donde tú puedas tener esa apertura para incluir lo que está excluido, para reconocer al otro, para ir hacia unos espacios más equilibrados, donde haya más justicia. Y por supuesto, que transitemos también desde la generación, ese colectivo exterior, en donde nos preocupemos por nuestro medio ambiente, en donde creamos nuevas figuras económicas, políticas y sociales. Desde estos nuevos espacios propositivos tenemos que crear nuevos sistemas operativos. Así que hoy mi invitación es a que no impongamos resolver sobre los contrarios, sino que más bien tengamos una visión expansiva y creadora de objetivos comunes, que creemos hoy desde nuestro femenino un nuevo contrato con lo natural, que podamos realmente ver cómo estas nuevas figuras de lo femenino pueden transformar este colectivo de nuestras mujeres, creando y apoyando a otras mujeres. Así que, como decían las abuelas, vamos a tejer nuevos canastos y nuevas urdimbres. El corazón de la piedra es tu propio corazón. El corazón de las estrellas también son nuestros propios corazones. Y el corazón de Dios está en cada una de nosotras. Así que no podemos seguir siendo parásitos que habitan y se nutren de este huésped que es nuestra madre tierra. Más bien, seamos parásitos simbióticos en donde damos, pero también recibimos. Este es un buen momento para sentarnos en círculo y hacer crecer esas raíces de la madre tierra en nuestro útero. Las mujeres tenemos 3 puntos poderosos y maravillosos que son nuestros puntos de poder. Nuestra corona, que es la hipófisis, nuestro corazón, que es el cáliz, y nuestro útero, que es el caldero donde nace la vida. Así que mi reflexión hoy es a invitarlas a que seamos una y a que levantemos esta proposición generativa de buenas ideas para cuidar de una mejor manera, integralmente, desde los 4 cuadrantes, esta madre tierra. Así que no sé si es mi momento para que hagamos este círculo conectivo y podamos hacer un pequeño ritual de cierre reflexivo. Cari, ¿me confirma si lo hacemos en este momento?
Sí, Lucía.
Yes, absolutely. Please, Yamara.
Do we still have time for the circle? Yes?
Yeah.
Entonces, hermosas mujeres, yo lo que propongo, como no las puedo ver a todas, ojalá pudiéramos encender las cámaras y mover la energía del corazón. Las mujeres realmente tenemos que mover la energía de la vida, entonces voy a pedirles que hagamos una comunicación energética con nuestras manos, que son la extensión de nuestro corazón, y vamos a hacer una pequeña meditación de conexión con nuestros úteros físicos o energéticos, porque la vida se da aquí, en este calderito, en donde está nuestro poder de gestación de la vida. Entonces vamos a mover la energía, vamos a hacer una pequeña meditación con un mantra muy lindo que hace referencia a la fuerza de la diosa Shakti, de la diosa femenina. Por eso tengo esta imagen que es la diosa que enciende la vida en cada una de nosotros. Entonces te voy a pedir que muevas las manos como si fuéramos niñas de 4 años moviendo la energía del corazón. Entonces voy a poner un mantra que es el Adi Shakti, que es un mantra hermoso que dice que la fuerza de la Kundalini se despierte en nosotras. Vamos a poner las manos acá en el corazón y van a jugar a ser mis espejos. Y sonríe. Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo. Ahora te miro y te veo. Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo. Te entrego mi corazón. Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. Y eleva tu fuerza femenina. Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Mata Shakti, Namo Namo. Quiero verlas a todas moviendo la energía del corazón. Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo. Nos vemos. Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo. Te entrego mi corazón. Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati. planeta. Vamos a hacerlo la última vez. Te veo. Te entrego mi corazón. Elevemos la energía para todas las mujeres del planeta. Inhala profundo. Exhala profundo. Respira muy suave y conéctate con ese medio ambiente interior donde nace la vida dentro de ti. Respira muy suavemente. Siente tu peso en la silla. El peso de tus brazos sobre tu regazo. Toma una respiración. Inspira la vida. Y lleva tu conciencia a tu útero. Siente o imagina que tu vientre es como un gran árbol con dos ramas principales, con hermosas hojas frondosas y frutas rojas y brillantes como joyas colgando. Las raíces de este árbol del útero se extienden hacia abajo profundamente en la tierra, conectándote y enraizándote a sus energías. Y mientras te enraizas, puedes sentir o ver la energía de la tierra fluyendo hacia tu útero. Te sientes centrada y equilibrada. Ahora permite que la imagen de tu árbol del útero crezca hasta que las ramas de este árbol se separen a la altura de tu corazón. Mientras te conectas con esta imagen, siente cómo el centro de tu corazón se abre y la energía fluye hacia tus brazos, hacia tus manos y hacia tus dedos. Siente la conexión amorosa entre la tierra, tu útero y tu corazón. Siéntete llena de fuerza, de amor y de poder. Ahora permite que esas grandes ramas de tu árbol se recojan en tu corazón y de tu corazón van a tu útero y de tu útero vuelven a entrar a la madre tierra. Inhala profundo, exhala profundo y desde esa conexión hermosa pregúntate hoy, ¿qué recursos tienes para crear un mundo mejor? ¿Qué te da más energía? ¿Qué te conecta con la vida? Y desde la vida abramos los brazos y creamos y creemos un nuevo cambio para este planeta. Reconozco en cada una de ustedes que somos mujeres poderosas, completas y divinas. Gracias. Namaste.
Thank you so much to Xiomara for that amazing presentation and experience and meditation. We'll pass over now to Rosario Cadima. We are going to be able to ask questions of Xiomara, Rosario, and Milka at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself when we do have that Q&A. Now we're going to be joined by Rosario Cadima, who is a community leader from the municipality of Colomi in the department of Cochabamba in Bolivia. Rosario has conformed an organization of indigenous women in her municipality who now participate in actions to combat climate change through community enterprises based on local production, potatoes, and other products. She's managed to achieve the integration of women in her municipality and create a network that supports each other. In Rosario's own words, climate change, poverty, and food insecurity are issues that also affect us and to which we can also contribute with our leadership and partnership, experiences, and our own knowledge. With that, I pass it over to Rosario.
Muy buenos días, gracias por este espacio que me han dado en esta conferencia. Bueno, gracias por presentarme, Lucía. Me presento otra vez, mi nombre es Rosario Cadima Arnés, soy de Bolivia, del departamento de Cochabamba, del municipio de Colón. Yo pertenezco a una pequeña organización de mujeres productoras de papa, haba y taruis principalmente. Toda nuestra economía se basa en esos productos. También producimos otros productos que es para consumo. Esta organización está enfocada principalmente en la producción resiliente. Nosotros producimos con bioinsumos, principalmente que es para nuestra alimentación y la alimentación de nuestras comunidades. Entonces, esta producción a nosotros nos sirve para alimentarnos, para comercializar y también para ayudar en la producción ecológica. ¿Por qué no empezar de nosotros, no? Entonces, una organización, ya sea pequeña o grande, siempre tiene problemas. Y nosotras nos apoyamos unas a otras, siempre creciendo nosotras también, ¿no? Entonces, como mujeres, nosotros sembramos en la parte de haba, en la producción de haba, sembramos parcelas grupales. En estas parcelas grupales, nosotras todas sembramos una parcela. Y de esta parcela, nosotras trabajamos juntas, apoyándonos siempre. Y al final de todo el trabajo, nosotras nos repartimos los recursos económicos equitativamente. En la producción de papa, nosotras las de Colomi estamos entregando papas ecológicas en supermercados. Y en esta tenemos muchos problemas económicos por el manejo económico, que no podemos hacerlas bien, ¿no? Entonces, nos apoyamos a nosotras mismas para poder salir adelante con esto y solucionar nuestros problemas, porque no podemos nosotras simplemente dejar de lado este negocio tan importante que es y que nos ayuda a nosotros en nuestras familias de alguna manera. Amortiguamos el poder, no sé, ayudamos en la economía de nuestra familia, a nuestros esposos, ¿no? Entonces, trabajamos junto con ellos, claro, sin dejar de lado nuestras familias. En la producción de tarwi, nuestra producción es rotativa. Sembramos papa, luego haba y luego tarwi, para poder fertilizar la tierra sin utilizar insumos dañinos para nuestra tierra. Y nosotras, en las actividades que realizamos como mujeres, nos capacitamos también para poder llevar adelante los problemas que estamos llevando, que tenemos en nuestro grupo. Como mujeres nos ayudamos y nos apoyamos. Cuando una persona tiene problemas que no puede, digamos, hablar, o cuando está teniendo problemas en la casa, o cuando está teniendo problemas en nuestros grupos, nosotras nos apoyamos unas a otras, no nos dejamos de lado. No podemos dejar de lado a las otras personas que se vayan tampoco, porque ellas son parte de nosotros y es parte de nuestro grupo, ¿no?
Rosario, ¿le podría pedir que hable un poquitito más fuerte para que los intérpretes la puedan escuchar mejor, por favor?
Okay. Entonces, las actividades, las señoras, nosotros trabajamos en unión siempre, trabajamos con las señoras en diferentes trabajos. Elaboramos nuestros propios bioinsumos para poder trabajar en nuestras parcelas y de estas poder venderlas. ¿Sí? ¿Me están escuchando?
Me parece que sí, que ahí está mejor. Muchas gracias.
Ok. Entonces, nuestro grupo de personas siempre nos estamos apoyando unas a otras, ¿no? No nos dejamos de lado, vamos todas juntas de la mano, porque estos productos, como nosotros los producimos y también nos toca a nosotros comercializarlas, claro que en los problemas que tenemos hay que solucionarlos de alguna manera. Entonces, tenemos a personas de tercera edad, tenemos personas menores que ya tienen familia, entonces hay que apoyar de alguna manera económicamente a estas también, ¿no? Entonces, esta producción que tenemos de papa, haba y tarwi nos ayuda mucho. En el tema tarwi, por ejemplo, nosotras agarramos convenios con instituciones para poder preparar preparados de tarwi. Todos nuestros preparados tenemos un recetario, hemos desarrollado un recetario de esto y a base de eso ya podemos nosotros individualmente o grupalmente hacer preparados a base de tarwi. Así también actualmente se está trabajando en un recetario de papas nativas, de un preparado de papas nativas. Entonces vamos a tener un recetario de papas nativas para poder usarlo como grupo o individualmente. Y en cuanto a haba, nosotras estamos pensando en la producción masiva más harto y anualmente, no tener habas temporales, porque ahora producimos habas temporales y estamos buscando semillas que nos puedan dar en otras temporadas cuando falta agua o en temporadas de helada que sean resistentes a las heladas y podamos nosotras de alguna manera también tener producción de haba en esas temporadas para no tener escaseces en esas temporadas de sequía o no sé, con otros cambios climáticos que enfrentamos nosotras. En cuanto a tarwi, pasa lo mismo. En nuestras comunidades, la mayoría, nosotros no tenemos agua. Entonces, y el tarwi se quiere de mucha agua para poder ser desamargada. Y como organización buscamos otras alternativas que puedan sustituir al tarwi o otros granos que que tengan los mismos propiedades que el tarwi, pero en esta búsqueda hemos encontrado de variedades de tarwi, ¿no? Entonces, nuestros grupos se están dedicando ahora a la producción de tarwis dulces. Esto nos ayuda a nosotros en ahorrar agua y tiempo en el desamargado. Y así trabajamos grupos, con los 3 grupos de señoras que estamos trabajando, somos hartas, en un principio éramos muy poquitas, pero ahora ya nuestro grupo ha crecido bastante y somos más fuertes. La unión hace la fuerza, como dice nuestra moneda boliviana. Muchas gracias y ha sido un placer compartir mi experiencia de las señoras con ustedes, hablar de la producción que hacemos nosotras, de las papas, de las habas, de mi grupo. Entonces, esto a mí personalmente me ha servido para crecer como persona con el apoyo de mis compañeras. Y así a otras personas tenemos muy valientes que se capacitan ahora y están creciendo individualmente, pero juntas siempre.
Thank you very much, Rosario. And we're doing a little bit okay on time, so I would like to ask Rosario a quick question, and I'd like to do it in Spanish if it's okay with the translators. Rosario, le quisiera preguntar algo rapidito. Usted ha hablado mucho de los espacios físicos que crean la solidaridad entre mujeres, que realmente las ayuda y que las mantiene y que las facilita lo que hacen. En este momento con coronavirus y en particular que Bolivia ha sido muy afectado, ¿cómo es que la reducción en esos espacios físicos con respecto al trabajo que ustedes hacen de manera productiva, o sea que la solidaridad está arraigada en la producción y en el apoyo económico mutual, ¿cómo han encontrado espacios para mantener ese tipo de espacio a pesar de las limitaciones? Y le pido por ahí 1 minuto o 2 a ver si usted podría responder.
Bueno, en cuanto al coronavirus, nosotras en Colombia hemos sido afectadas bastante, ¿no? Nos ha afectado y creo que ha afectado a todos también. Entonces, como nosotras trabajamos grupalmente, nos apoyamos unas a otras. Entonces, conocemos nosotras a otras personas que nos puedan facilitar semilla, porque en esta época justamente nos ha tocado la siembra, ¿no? Entonces, tenemos que buscar otras alternativas para poder seguir con nuestro trabajo como grupo. Entonces, buscamos semillas, otras variedades. Ahora actualmente estamos en la producción de semillas que no era nuestro trabajo, que no es nuestro negocio, pero ahora vamos a tener nos ha abierto otro nuevo enfoque, otro nuevo objetivo, por qué alcanzar este problema del coronavirus, ¿no? ¿Ha sido un problema? Sí, pero hay que ver el lado bueno de todo esto. Ahora tenemos un grupo de pequeños que van a producir semilla propia y podamos nosotros en un futuro ya tener semilla propia nosotras mismas y no ser azotados de esta manera, ¿no? Ha bajado nuestros cultivos, ya no son de las mismas cantidades que los años pasados, no han reducido y esto nos va a traer consecuencias en un futuro, pero ya veremos cómo lo vamos a solucionar.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosario, for sharing that experience. Next, we will hear from Milka Lalam, who is a development specialist and self-starter with 15 years of technical expertise and practical experience in advancing women's and youth empowerment, trauma awareness, resilience, peace building, trauma recovery, and rights-based and gender-sensitive approaches to development. Milka also works in theater for development in fragile and conflict-affected countries. She mentors and coaches women and men in organizational leadership that disrupts paradigms and inequalities. She's an expert advisor and frequent speaker on the important role of women and gender in communities and peace building, and the application of theater for development and trauma healing in post-conflict communities, particularly in the Great Lakes region of East Africa. Milka has an MA in Theater and Development Studies from the UK, a BA in Drama from Macquarie University, and is a program coordinator of the Great Lakes Initiative and Eastern Africa Regional Peace Builders Network. With no further ado, I pass you Milka Lalam. And Milka, you are on mute.
Thank you, Lucia, for the warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, sisters all over the world who are joining us for this virtual conference. I'm thankful to Coady International Institute for organizing this, marking 20 years of the UN Security Council 1325. As I've listened to the experiences and stories, challenges of this work, I've been reminded of a saying that to build one's house, a solid foundation is required, so that when a storm comes, the house will withstand the elements and not collapse. And so like this house, our bodies, minds, and heart need a strong foundation. They also need repair and strengthening from time to time. And self-care is how we keep going in this work, no matter the situation we find ourselves. Self-care and collective care are essential. And I would like to share a story from my mentor, Alice Peterson. She told this story 3 years ago, and I would want to draw lessons around 3 questions. How can we keep on keeping on in the women's peace and security work over a long time? How can we maintain a healthy life and work balance? What are some practices and disciplines that can support us as we support each other? In 1993, my mentor went on a trip to Kenya in East Africa to visit friends. On that visit, they went on a hike. In those pictures you see, that's the mountain, Mount Longonot, a dead volcanic mountain in the Great Rift Valley. The highest peak is at 2,776 meters or 9,108 feet. So you can see how high it was. That was a journey like none she had taken before. As she climbed higher and higher, each step she took became very difficult. She didn't know where to step next. She felt like giving up. What enabled her to accomplish her desire to reach the highest peak? She had taken a guide with her. That guide's support proved to be invaluable. He began to show her where to place her feet. He stayed close to her and traveled at her pace. He did not belittle her efforts or discourage her. When she stopped, he stopped. When she stepped, he stepped. When she paused, he paused. After a couple of hours, she made it to the peak of Mount Longonot. What a joy and relief she experienced. As she reflected on what she had just accomplished, she thought, who is like a guide in my life? Who is gentle? Who is patient? And nudges me on when I feel like giving up? As a person of faith, she realized that it's the Holy Spirit. Now picture your own life's journey in the women's peace and security work and other work involved that brings together women. How many times have you felt exhausted, bitter, deep disappointment, been burnt out, wanting to give up and go do something else? From the story, what kept Alice going on the journey to the peak of that mountain? 1, she had a guide. In your life, who is your guide? This guide can be a mentor, a spiritual director, or a close friend who moves at your pace, shows you where to step, so to speak, stays close by, and gives you gentle nudges. This is one important aspect of self-care that we all need. If you do not have such a person in your life, make plans from today to find such a person or persons. The second lesson I want to draw from the story is how to have a healthy life and work balance. Alice took full responsibility for her actions, even if she relied on the coach, on the guide. When we speak about a strong foundation, that can see us through challenging times and even times of success. We are talking about a foundation that helps you to define your purpose, your beliefs, your attitudes, internal and external resources. Having this foundation allows you to have your feet grounded, and no matter the storm, you will always bounce back. One saying I've heard is that you can dance in the eye of a hurricane. You can dance in a hurricane only if you dance in its eye. How will we be able to dance in the eye of a storm? It's by having our purpose well defined, our beliefs. I want you to take a few moments now to reflect. What have you learned from difficulties you've experienced in your life and work? How have those times become a means of growth and transformation? Staying with your reflections, we're going to do a breathing exercise called emptying and filling. This exercise can be used at any time. You may close your eyes or keep them open. Sit in a comfortable position. We will now exhale on negative thoughts and emotions, and inhale on positive thoughts and emotions. Breathe out anxiety. Breathe in peace. Breathe out dread. Breathe in eagerness. Breathe out impatience. Breathe in patience. Breathe out sadness. Breathe in joy. Breathe out hatred. Breathe in love. Breathe out anger. Breathe in calm. Breathe out disease. Breathe in health. Breathe out fear. Breathe in courage. Breathe out despair. Breathe in hope. Breathe out confusion. Breathe in clarity. Breathe out brokenness. Breathe in wholeness. If you had your eyes closed, in 3, 2, 1, please open your eyes. Third, what are some practices and disciplines that can support our physical, intellectual, mental, emotional, and spiritual life? I would like to share some practical experiences that I've had with these practices. The thing is that these practices, not one size fits all, so you can adapt them as according to your preference. Someone who is an introvert like myself would not go with some practices that involve meeting others and being very engaged. What I use to help my physical and intellectual well-being, I take frequent walks in nature, and that allows me to clear my mind, allows me to look at creation, to look at things that are in my world, trees, hearing birds singing, and that refreshes my mind. Nutrition is very important. I wake up in the morning and take a glass of warm water. Throughout the day, I try to keep my body hydrated, having enough rest and sleep, no less than 8 hours a day, and make sure I go early to bed so that I'm able to have sufficient. I also spend time learning new things. There are many online courses that one could do, courses that one could enroll on that can support continued learning. Reading books for pleasure, that's another way. For my mental and emotional health, I set work and life boundaries. I do not take work calls and respond to emails after 5 p.m. unless it's a life and death emergency. And this has helped me to be able to separate my work from my life. At what point I was carrying my work home. When I would sleep, I would only dream about my work. I would not have any break at all in my mind. And so I developed a metaphorical tree that I would come outside my home and leave these burdens of work there and pick them up the next morning as I left. Other practices that support mental and emotional health may include setting priorities, schedules, having time for family. Spiritual practices that are found helpful: scripture reading and study, silence and solitude, prayer and journaling. And in journaling, I put down all the thoughts that were upon my heart. And after I put them down, they no longer have any hold on me. Other spiritual practices may include fasting, giving, and service. I would like to conclude by sharing a relational support framework developed by Dr. Alice Peterson and Dr. Bill Lowry, which they taught me. And in this framework, you see, we have talked about the personal self-care. And that self-care is where we experience relief from what we are carrying and burdening ourselves with. The second one is the bonding relationships, the one-on-one. It's important to have someone in your life who acts as a guide. We have spoken at length about a guide who supports you on your journey. But it's also important to have a jester, someone who makes you laugh at yourself, someone who shows you the foolishness of your ideas, that allows you to relax. You also need to have someone who is an encourager, someone who helps you when you feel low. You need to have someone also who is a prophet, someone who speaks truth to you when you don't want to hear it and they say, no, this is as it is. They will not be soft on you. That kind of one-on-one relationship is important for your self-care. The third one is bridging relationships. This focuses on having small groups or large groups that you form. If you're a person of faith, having small study groups for scripture, or groups that are involved in weaving, knitting, quilting, exercising together. Those small groups help you to bridge outside your own self. And the fourth, relational support. Even after we have had a one-on-one relationship or bridging relationship, sometimes we need specialist support. Sometimes our physical health is broken. So it can be a doctor, it can be a counselor, it can be a psychologist, it can be someone who, a nutritionist, someone who will help you when your body and mind and heart need help. And then fifth and last are the linking relationships. And so this involves looking outside your own context or circle of people that you work with, people who are of different ages, different faith traditions, different belief systems. Having these linking relationships help you to engage then with the world. And so as we sustain ourselves in this peace work, it's good for us to be part of a wider community of people that are working towards peace and security in the long haul. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at the closing of this wonderful conference.
Thank you so much, Milka. That was very powerful. We now have about 10 minutes for questions to the panelists, as well as comments and anything that the attendees and organizers would like to share. And if I may, while Karina is perhaps gathering if there are any questions for any of the specific panelists, this is a topic that as the organizing group of this conference has been looking at a lot, has been looking at how can we take care of ourselves? How can we make sure that we're healthy, that we are happy, that we are taking care of the important things and doing whatever it is that we individually or as families or within our community need to do to make sure that we that we are sound and that we are healthy. And so I would love to invite the attendees, who all of us have been dealing with more challenges than we could have imagined a year ago in our work, in our families, in our communities. And I would love to hear, either through the chat or if you could unmute yourself, any particular exercises or strategies that anybody has taken around this question of self-care and collective self-care.
Nicole has a hand up, and I encourage the attendees to put up their hand if they would like to make an intervention so that I can unmute.
Great, thanks, Eileen. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, everybody. Actually, I had a question from Luca, but I'll answer your question. I found it very useful to meditate in the morning and just create, a time to center yourself. I also do Reiki as well, which is a Japanese healing art. And I realized that I notice what happens on the days that I don't do it and the days that I do. And my question kind of was from Milkaya around, I know she talked about, shutting off the phone, not answering emails. But for new people who coming in who feel that they want to save the world, because I was one of them, you want to save the world, you want to help everybody. But what is the one thing you need to remember or get to that point where you can't save the world, but you also want to be true to yourself? So I just wanted to know if you could speak a little more about that, especially for the new people coming into this space who, as I said, want to save the world.
Thank you, Nicole, for the question. I also was one such person. And what my mentor Alice helped me to realize was that there's only one of me. So if I break down, if I'm not useful to anybody, what good am I? And that recognition helped me to take better care of myself so that I could be useful for another day. And it's hard for you to step back and feel that a situation can be taken care of by somebody else. And so it helped me to delegate to others and say, between these times, I'm not physically available, but let's pick up with it tomorrow morning when I'm fresh and rested, and I can be of more use to you than now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing. Is there anybody else, panelist or attendee, that has a question or that also wants to share a particular strategy or exercise that they practice that is essential to them at this time and other times? Xiomara, of course, hello.
Sí, así me encantaría como complementar el tema del autocuidado, que me parece fundamental, porque nosotras somos las sostenedoras de la vida y a veces nos ponemos por encima de nosotras mismas, exigiéndonos y teniendo una carga alostática de estresores tan grandes que a veces no podemos realmente tener esa autogestión de nuestro cuerpo. Y hay tres cosas fundamentales para ser unas mujeres exitosas, para tener una salud radiante, y es tener control sobre nuestro cuerpo vital, tener claridad en nuestra mente y tener conexión con la vida o con Dios o con el alma. Así que yo las invito a que chequeen todos los días cómo están esas tres gestiones en su vida. Cómo está su cuerpo físico, cómo está su mente y cómo está la conexión con la vida. Y cada día podemos tener como una rutina de higiene maravillosa en donde nos alimentemos enzimáticamente, llenemos nuestro cuerpo de vitalidad, hagamos ejercicio, porque la vida, si no se mueve, se anquilosa. Respiremos, la respiración, como decía Milak, es muy importante. La respiración oxigena nuestra sangre y es muy importante. Y también la relajación, tener espacios, islas de serenidad. Sé que somos mujeres multifacéticas, somos multinivel, queremos hacer 10 cosas al mismo tiempo, hablamos por teléfono, cocinamos, hablamos con la amiga, hacemos la conferencia, todo al mismo tiempo, pero realmente necesitamos pequeñas islas de serenidad para conectarnos con la fuente y tener esa energía vital alta. Así que mi invitación es eso, a que chequeen todos los días cómo está su nivel de conexión con la vida.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Xiomara. Absolutely essential, yes, to make sure that you are checking all your boxes and making sure that you're checking in on the different aspects that make you who you are and make you whole and able to do in the best way possible everything that you have in front of you. And I invite Sherna, my friend Sherna, who was on a wonderful panel on Monday, to speak. I think. Yeah.
I enjoying this discussion on self-care. Drawing from what Nicole asked concerning young persons who are coming into the work, what advice would you give to young persons around the issue of self-guilt and judging oneself too harshly when one is encouraged to take time to heal, to grow, to evolve, and to just pause from the work? Because I think I have certainly been there, coming into this work years ago, just running and ripping, thinking, yeah, you can save the world, until the harsh reality comes in that, you know, you're actually breaking down your own body and your mental place. And at that point in time, it was really hard for me because I felt not just disappointed in myself, but I judged myself harshly for taking time off to just breathe and shutting down everything and just taking a few days off. What advice, would, the panelists give to young persons who are coming into this week?
Milka, Rosario, or Xiomara, or anybody who would like to add anything, please feel free to unmute yourself and respond to Sherna's question.
I would encourage the young person to have a mentor, because that's what really helped me to get a healthy life and work balance. That's the person I could speak to about all my concerns and worries, and they would help me have a better perspective of who I was and my capabilities. I think that my life before that mentor was just ripped up. Like you said, you were just running from one crisis to the other, and I was no good for myself. I was very stressed and very unhelpful to my colleagues. And they were able even to see that difference. Once I had somebody I was speaking with on a regular basis, we arranged to speak once a month for an hour. And that is the time I would debrief and distress. So anyone who is young and getting into the field needs to have someone that they can freely debrief with, and then put in place these steps to care for yourself. Because without that self-care, you're no good to anybody.
Thank you so much, Milka. We have Oksana, who has her hand up. If you could unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, everyone. Oh, and I don't know if you can see me, but I'm speaking. Yes. Here we are.
Sorry, Oksana, go ahead.
No worries. I wanted to add to the question that resonated with me a lot about what do we do if we keep hearing these voices of self-judgment and guilt, even when we do try to take care of ourselves. What has helped me in my work and in my practice was developing critical consciousness. And this is also something that we can do collectively for each other, but understanding and recognizing that these voices of guilt and shame are not just inside me. They are shared by many women that I have spoken to, makes me realize that it is not personal, it is systemic, it is part of the patriarchal socialization that we grew up with. And so it is our job and responsibility to help each other liberate ourselves from those convictions. It is convenient to keep telling women that they should not take care of themselves, but should take care of others. It is convenient for patriarchy and for capitalism to make women feel guilty and call them selfish. It is not a coincidence that we experience all those feelings. And so reminding ourselves in moments when we think that it's just our own demons that we are fighting with, that it is not just me and my little voice in my head. It's me and hundreds of years of patriarchy against me. And it's understandable that the fight is difficult, but I found this practice extremely useful, just honestly knowing what I'm up against and being, not so hard on myself, but also reminding my sisters again and again when they are sharing something like this with me. And I tell them, trust me, it's not personal. This is our collective struggle. And we call in Theater of the Oppressed, we call this work cops in the head. Yeah, the way systems of oppression find their place in our heads and in our psyches when we no longer need somebody from the outside to control us. We do this on our own. So liberating ourselves collectively from these cops is equally important, I believe. And this is what feminist solidarity, feminist pedagogy, and feminist support can do. And I wanted to bring this in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oksana. That's absolutely relevant and a point that hasn't been brought up before. Yes, Zirmar, go ahead.
Lucia, we have some questions here in the panel.
Yes,
Well,
Miriam Azim, you have a couple questions. Would you like to unmute and ask? And I think this might be the final question before we pass over to Jaya and Eileen to close us out.
Okay, so for any of the panelists who wants to answer, how do we keep the momentum? Also, we talk about sustainability. How do you ensure sustainability? For any of the panelists. We had another one of self-care, but yeah, we don't have it anymore.
Xiomara, you were going to respond or say something. Do you want to maybe take this question and comment?
Or anyone can answer if anybody feels that they have an answer to the question, because mainly we do feel that we are feeling burnt out during activism, and then self-care is such an important component of activism and leadership that is very specific to women. So I would really like to hear any thoughts, any tips, any guiding tools that you would like to share, or anybody else in this group who would like to share how they sustain activism and self-care practices, and how do we internalize that?
Myself, I have a belief that if I do an action consistently for 21 days, then it becomes a habit. And so when you make it when you take intentional effort to do these practices, then they become a part of your well-being, a part of your desire to make a sustainable system. And then as you work with others, younger than you, older than you, you're tapping into wisdom that they can offer about how they have done it, about how they have created a network of people that will support you in your, and I like the idea of the Zamara said that it's life like a great. So you think, what is my strand of thread that I'm contributing to this weaving? And that's what will bring the sustainability, because you look at yourself as part of a collective and not just an individual doing one thing, but part of weaving that is going to continue long after you're gone. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
With that, I would actually like to add something about the different practices that we can incorporate and integrate into our daily, or if not daily, weekly or monthly routines. And going back to the space of women working in fields that are related and in sharing in a very targeted and sometimes structured, sometimes not so structured way, their challenges, their opportunities, their lessons, their inspiration. That is something that I find I would like to incorporate into my practice as something that gives the kind of energy that makes a lot of the challenges surmountable. And so just want to close out with a quick appreciation of the sisterhood that has been developed over the past week and over the past couple of months with all the different organizers on this program. And to thank everybody on this panel, to thank Xiomara, to thank Rosario, to thank Milka for sharing your wonderful experiences, and everybody who has asked questions. We will continue these chats and hope to continue circulating all of your different experiences and everything that we can learn. So with that, I will pass this over to Jaya. Welcome to Jaya, to continue.
Thank you, Lucia. I'm so privileged. I'm feeling so privileged to listen to all these self-care practices and self-care tips. And I really agree with the question Mariam asked at the end, to realize the importance of self-care as leaders. It is really very important. I don't have anything more to say, but I just wanted to, share a video, a short video that we have prepared together, and all the audio we have, all the audios which are used in this video are gathered from WhatsApp. So I will be just, presenting you as a summary of this e-conference which we organized together for equality, justice, and peace. So let me just, share this video with you. I think, Eileen, you need to allow me to share my screen.
You should be able to share it. Go ahead, Jaya.
Okay. Let me.
Local Women Voices for Peace.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
मकामी औरतों की आवाजें अमन के लिए.
शान्तिका लागि स्थानीय महिलाका आवाजहरू.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
أصوات النساء المحليات من أجل السلام.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
Maloboozi g'abakali abawulijo okuwanirira eidembe.
Boses ng mga kababaihan para sa kapayapaan.
Голоси місцевих жінок, що просувають мир.
Local Women's Voices for Peace. Lokale Frauenstimmen für den Frieden. Lokale Kvinnersröster för fred.
Voix des femmes locales pour la paix. Nyɔnu la Hovegbe, Namtifafa. Local Women's Voices for Peace.
Sauti za amani za wanawake.
Inzwi rerugare ramadzimai emunharaunda.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
Local Women's Voices for Peace.
Thank you very much. We still need more photos to complete this video, but I just wanted to share this short video with you all because it is all about bringing the experience of local women around the globe, and Coady has led this process, and we have become the part of this process. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Yeah, namaste.
Namaste. And with that, I thank you so much, Jaya, for sharing that. Eileen Alma, we welcome you to wrap us up.
Thank you so much, Lucia, and thank you, Jaya. And thank you to all of the wonderful presenters and facilitators who gave us new insights on how to care for ourselves and to care for one another. as we seek to advance gender equality, peace, and security for all. Let me start off by again honoring and acknowledging that Coady Institute and the university is based on Mi'kma'ki, which is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We did this at the opening of the virtual conference. We did this again today. It is so important to realize that the treaties for this territory did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact, it recognizes the Mi'kmaq and the Maliseet title and established rules for what is to be an ongoing relationship between nations. I raise this because our Indigenous sisters and brothers here on this land continue to this day to have to fight for their rights to lovingly steward lands and seas for which they and their ancestors before them have been long custodians, and for them to have a decent livelihood and to live in peace, decide what's best for themselves and for their communities, and for ensuring that all are free from fear, violence, and insecurity, especially Indigenous women and girls. And if this insecurity and conflict persists in a progressive but colonizing country like Canada, then what does that tell us about the greater world we're in? Friends all around the world, please take the time to understand and recognize the ancestors and heritage of the land on which you reside. We know that ancestral land is important to many of us. Begin to learn and appreciate the significance and the stories that we each share. Peace building begins with acknowledgement and deep listening of one another, of acknowledging wrongdoing, past and present, of recognizing our own flaws, and of appreciating our diversities. We are all treaty people. Several months ago, as the seriousness of COVID-19 was really settling in, Robin and I and our colleagues at Coady really thought carefully about how we could continue to create space for conversation and for learning and for movement building. And out of this thinking, we agreed, Robin and I, to move ahead on a dream that we had and that we knew that others shared, of really reflecting on the topics of women, peace, and security in a way where local women's leadership could be celebrated and elevated. And thus the idea for this conference, which we didn't seek to do in a normal way. We didn't want necessarily to bring together better known researchers or academics or experts in the field, but rather we wanted to ensure that other women's voices were also being heard globally. The reality of the conference, though, is that women are not homogenous. They're not a one singular identity. We are researchers, we are practitioners, we are policymakers, mothers, daughters, sisters, wives, heads of household, human rights defenders, activists, learners. And the more than 100 speakers and the almost 900 participants in the event has added another layer of richness to an incredibly important area of our work, helping to once again contribute to this call 20 years later, for women and girls' rights to peace and security, for women's visible and tangible role as leaders in peace negotiations at a peace table, and of the feminization of our military and peacekeeping operations. So this conference is concluding, but at the same time, it's really just beginning. Because now, as we conclude the gathering that we've had, I would like to make the following calls to actions. First, spend time reviewing the sessions. All of them have been recorded. Take the time to absorb them as we will. Share your thoughts with us on the website platform. More importantly, think about who in your community was not able to take part. Maybe they had language challenges. Maybe they had other challenges with ability. Maybe there was a connectivity issue for them. Maybe they're just really busy living their lives, trying to take care of themselves, hold things together, and take care of their families. So consider how you might share the learning with them. Can you organize a discussion and bring the video to them? Can you ensure persons with disabilities have an opportunity to reflect also on the recommendations that were made? We have a shared responsibility in ensuring that learning does not rest with a few people who are privileged to take part in these spaces. Please commit to this alongside us. Third, if you're a person who gets to speak or has an opportunity to speak frequently, please take another hardworking woman along with you next time. Introduce her to the group. I was struck by the opportunity that was created by our sister from India, who shared her space with a local leader who would have never had any opportunity like this to have her voice heard on a global scale, and given her language, her dialect, and just her working life. Women's stories are important. Reach out and bring another with you and create the space. Finally, we have opened a call for contributions as a next step in our learning and leadership journeys. So please consider contributing to this, a story, a poem, art, or another medium to share your experiences on the topic of local women's leadership and peace building. Write a case study story on another local woman who inspires you. And for those that are interested, consider writing an article. Please see our conference website for more of those details. So I will end my reflections by expressing some thanks to people who've contributed to the event. First of all, our facilitators, Ruth, Kay, Patricia, Alyonka, Max, thank you so much, and Dora. We were so pleased to be able to offer our sessions, some of our sessions in other languages appropriate to the regions. We have work to do in order to learn to be more like the UN, but thank you for bearing with us. Our many rapporteurs, all of whom said yes instead of no and volunteered their time. It's because of you that we will be able to make written reports available and summarize. Our partners on this event, coming from Nobel Women's Initiative, who have stepped in to lend their support and encouragement and resources. That includes Rachel and Liz, and of course, Jody Williams, who joined us on Monday. They've helped us realize this vision, and they took a leap of faith with us. The Coady communications team, which includes Sue, Jenny, and Brian, and also Kathy from our library, they also took a huge leap of faith, and they did everything in-house, alongside all of you amazing women, to really get the word out about the conference and to try some new innovative technology for, at least for us. Our graduate committee, wow. Oh my God. I mean, our network is already phenomenal, but wow, did you ever answer the call and deliver? That is Salome, Jaya, Farhat, Abidun, Roland, Lucia, Karina, Oksana, Catherine, Kate, Asha, Ada, Nina, Yukai, Michelle, Dee, Kulud, and Nicole. I hope I didn't forget somebody. What an incredible group to work with over these past 2 months, and in a very short amount of time, we made a really important event happen. Our many panelists, as I've said before, and moderators and keynote listeners who honored us with their time, thank you so much. And our own Coady and StFX team overall, especially our sisters in the Center for Women's Leadership, who include Carrie Lynn, Brianne, and Kate. They've been working nonstop, not just on the conference, but also on so many other initiatives related to supporting women leaders locally and globally, and doing all of this while trying to figure out how to continue managing in a pandemic and taking care of families. And lastly, my friend and colleague, Dr. Robin Neustaedter, whose commitment to women's leadership and peace is, I believe, even greater than my own. Robin, it's such a pleasure to work with you, an honor to work with you, and to support women leaders and peace builders together. So let me tell you lastly about one woman who supports me quietly behind the scenes. I first met her 6 years ago, and she took a chance on Coady Institute and on me and on the Center for Women's Leadership. And she chooses to remain anonymous, but she's freely given us the financial resources with very few restrictions to allow us to build our work and to realize a vision. If you asked her today, she would probably not even realize the impact she's had made on us and on me personally. At a time, both past and present, when financial resources are so scarce for women's organizations, it's because of her that we can even do this kind of work or bring women together for our courses. So she knows who she is, and I wish to publicly thank her alongside our sister leaders for the support she's provided us and to me personally. Sisters and brothers, we are living in tumultuous times where our leadership and peace building skills are needed more than ever. Please join us in disrupting old systems that do not work and creating lasting positive change. Let me welcome you again to Coady Institute and to our learning journey together. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen, for those words. I think we all are incredibly grateful and thankful for this time that we've spent together. And so with that, we'll see you all soon, hopefully. Thank you again.